Next up, we've got a Q&A about modern architecture, hosted by Mr. Perry van der Weyden, Managing Partner NL at Netcompany. As a technology leader at Rijkswaterstaat, Perry achieved a lot of things with a very complex and dynamic organization. And as a result, he became the CIO of the year 2019. I would also like to welcome Mr. Art de Bruijne, Group IT Architect at Shell, Mr. Menno van Dassen, Head of Enterprise Architecture at ABN AMRO Bank, and Mrs. Mirjam Verlinden, Head of Architecture at Rabobank. Give them a warm welcome, please.
So, let's see if we can find some Dutch design with those great persons in the architecture world. Welcome. First question, because we got a little time. What shows the importance to your companies attached to architecture? Who can answer? With Mirjam.
Yeah, the importance of architecture. Well, within a bank does not deliver physical products. So you can see that all the banking functionality is always dependent on IT. And as a consequence, IT is very important, but also architecture is very important. And within Rabobank, the business, IT and architecture work closely together in what we call a multidisciplinary structure of divisions and tribes and areas. And because we have a close alignment between business, IT and architecture, I think there's also a good common understanding.
Okay. And maybe Art.
Yeah, let me add some thinking on the Shell side on that. If you think of Shell, we're going through a massive transformation at the moment. So we're moving from the traditional hydrocarbon-based business model to a more hydrogen and electrons-based business model. At the same time, we're transforming the organization from being product-aligned to being customer-aligned. These two transformations go in parallel, of course, accelerated by digitalization. So that means that we really need architecture to make sure that we have the sustained value of the IT solutions. There is so much change going on that without planning that through and thinking through how do we manage that, the complexity is just going to get out of control.
Great. And Menno.
Yeah, so for ABN AMRO, we have this purpose of banking for better for generations to come. And our strategy is that we want to be a personal bank in a digital age. So the word digital comes in happily in the strategy. But we also have a data strategy. And the data strategy is a bank-wide supported strategy where enterprise architecture helps to translate the more strategic questions and the direction setting up and until the implementation within the teams, the grids.
Great. And to what extent does your structure and governance do justice to them, to this?
Well,
go on, Menno.
Yeah. So our strength, I think, is in simplifying the world a little bit better. So enterprise architecture, for example, we have the three-layer architecture approach, where we have this top layer, which is the business layer. The middle layer is the application layer, and we have the infrastructure layer. And we are not there to learn everybody to talk all the languages of the layers, but as enterprise architects, we meet them where they are. So for example, if you talk with business, you talk about the business layer often, and you talk about products and processes and policies. Whereas you meet more the grids or the technical areas, you talk about applications, application functions, interfaces, etc. So by using this model, we all share the same world without having to share the same language.
Okay, Mirjam, how does that go in your environment, your company?
Yeah, I recognize the same thing as you did. You have different languages in the different aspects, whether it's the business layer, the application layer, or more the technology-related topics. Yeah, you need different languages and different items to discuss. And you also asked the question, how does that relate to structure and governance? Mm-hmm. And within Rabobank, we have a governance where on each level in the organization, we have 3 people that are responsible for change. So it's always a business representative, an IT representative, and an architect. And that's important also, well, to have influence as an architect. So architects are not only advisors, but they are really part of the leadership team on the different levels. And I think that helps to have influence. And then you still need to have the right language to be sure that everyone understands you.
And how's it with shell art, having the same language?
Yes, well, of course, the language, as Mirjam and Menno already mentioned, varies per the level that you basically operate at. So you'll have a different conversation when you talk with a business EVP about what we want to achieve as when you're working in a product team. Now, we have the lucky circumstance that our CIO truly sees the value of architecture, and that has given us the opportunity to really make sure that we have an architectural face-up at every level in the organization. So we have it at the senior business level, but we also have architecture face-up, let's say, at the product and product line level. And that all within the architecture hierarchy, so that gives us a good opportunity to actually manage the architecture, but also gives us a good setup to really have an appropriate dialogue with the product owner, with the product line owner or a product line manager, but also at the business EVP level. So that is, that let's say matching of the hierarchies really works well for us.
This changed a lot the last years, because before we had a big challenge to get IT in the boardroom and talk the same language, because architects are sometimes talking in a different language than a board member. So I think that's great. Eh? Can you tell something about the main design architecture principles from your company? Because we are looking a little bit to the Dutch design principles, and maybe we can catch them in the end.
Yeah, for me, okay. Yeah, we use several principles within the Rabobank, also on the different levels of abstractions, different type of principles. But maybe also for this setting, I would like to mention the principle of aligned autonomy. And we use that principle to drive the platform architecture of Rabobank. Well, what do I mean with that? For example, we have an online platform within Rabobank to deliver all our app and web functionality. And more than 100 teams can deliver features on the app independently. So that's the autonomous part, but still being aligned on the same look and feel, the same layout, etc. So it's also a way of thinking. How do you implement your application so you can get aligned autonomy? Because when you are independent, the teams are independent. They can deliver much faster. Yeah. And that's an important principle.
Yeah, right. Maybe Menno?
Yes, so before the principle, I would say one of the challenges always is, I think, to rationalize stuff. Because by nature, people like to make it more complex, have fast, short-time solutions. So we have too many products, too many processes. So I would say, as a kind of precondition, clean up and make sure it stays cleaned up. But I'm also with you, Mirjam, that, for example, on our data strategy, there's a bank-wide concept, and it has been translated to a data marketplace, literally, where we have fit-for-purpose data, where data owners provide data sets and make sure DQ issues are in place, etc. In the middle, we have the data marketplace. That is where data consumers request for data and formalize those requests with the data owners. And we got the accelerate data-driven decision making. So that's 3 key objectives. So data owners, data consumers are spread across the bank, but they all have this same mission, is make the data marketplace work.
Great. Art.
Yes, it's an interesting question. And of course, we have all the common known principles like modularization and decoupling and things like that. But let me just highlight one that I think is quite interesting, which is think business ecosystem. So what we ask our architects and our IT teams to do is when they face, let's say, a new business requirement, a business development, a business strategy change, is to actually start thinking about, okay, how to best handle that. can we work with business partners? Both, let's say, not only IT, but also, for example, somewhere else in the supply chain, to better achieve that outcome, to go faster, to, let's say, to make sure that we can reach maybe a wider market share more quickly. So we really try to inspire and trigger the teams to already start challenging and thinking with the business, okay, how can we use digitalization? How can we use business ecosystem to actually go faster, rather than just take the order and then say, okay, how do we, let's say, key this into the solution?
You force them by having a good structure for that.
Yes, yes, indeed. Of course, we need to enable that, but we really want to have people thinking, architects thinking around, okay, how do I actually challenge the requirement coming from the businesses, and how can I also, with my knowledge of digitalization, help the business teams to really understand what's possible in the business ecosystem?
Okay, we still got 3 minutes less. What's your most important message to those the people here in the audience, to give them to think about?
Yeah. When I see also this room and also my own department, I still would like to have a bit more diversity in the IT and architecture community.
I agree.
Yeah, so I do a lot of efforts to get more women in my department, but it's really a challenge.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have the same problem.
Yeah.
Art.
Yeah, so maybe, as I mentioned, I have the lucky circumstance of a CIO who really understands the value of architecture. So maybe the thought I want to leave the room with is, have you empowered your architecture team enough to do what they need to do?
Sure. Yeah.
Menno.
It's a very valid point, actually. So for me, it starts with the design. Maybe is the most simple part, but it's about the organizational commitment to implement the design, which is moreover not done in 1 year, but multiple years. So that asks for long-term investment and training of people, and also a commitment to make a shared result instead of a silo result.
Okay. I wrote some keywords I heard from you in this panel. Maybe we can make some Dutch design basis of that. I heard a lot of together, aligned with different parties in an organization, also partners, marketplaces. Are that the key? Doing things together, working in a chain from A to B?
Yeah, and keep things really simply. It's always difficult. It's always more easy to make complex things than to make things that are really simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the value chain, as you mentioned, per definition. So often there are multiple value chains, but value chains are organized across organizational departments. So if you want to create value, you should start with the value chain and try to capture the data there. Yeah.
Yeah. Art.
Okay.
10 seconds.
So the storytelling is maybe what I would add. So I think it's really important that an architect can tell the story of an architecture, so people understand why it is there and why it's important. So maybe storytelling is the one I would add to that.
Yeah. Okay. We're out of time. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big applause for this panel.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Menno, Mirjam, Art and Perry.